Okay, so I think we're going to kick off now then. I'll just do a quick introduction to myself and obviously to Neuroinclusive Jobs, and then I'm going to hand over to Katie after that. So my name is Alex. I'm the community manager at Neuroinclusive Jobs. I'm autistic and have ADHD, and I've been in the sort of creative and production sector for the last sort of 12 or so years. But I'm really passionate about obviously what we're doing here, about helping people like ourselves into you know, good employment, changing the way things work. We work with our sister company, Inclusive Jobs, that sort of directly works with employers to change the way that they hire and work with people like us. But in the community space, we sort of get to meet and connect with each other. You know, we want to learn more about people like ourselves, how our brains work, how we work as people, and sort of tips for doing well at work and doing well in life and things like that. So yeah, it's really exciting. This is sort of one of the first free webinars that we're doing. We do have sort of two levels of the community. There is the free community that anyone is welcome to join, and I hope that you do after this. Take a look at the QR code and you can join directly through that. There's also a paid area where we have things like discounts off the one-to-ones, there's coaching, there's CV reviews, all sorts of things that you might find helpful if you're looking for work or looking to kind of brush up your skills. And we also have incoming a lot of more events, recordings, different kind of fireside chats and things like that. So our next webinar, for example, is going to be an ADHD specific one for paid members, and it'll be running through how some of us have experienced the diagnosis process and what that's sort of done for us and how we kind of managed it as we went through. We are always open to suggestions for other topics, what you'd like to hear about, what you find most useful. So do feel free to pop things into the chat. Myself or Katie will get that. As we're running through this, please do feel free to ask any questions that you want. We will come to those at the end. So bear with us. If you are having tech issues, as I say, do try and shout out, and I'll keep an eye on the chat as Katie's running through. We have got people with cameras turned off and everyone is muted. That's just to make sure that there's, as smooth as possible for everybody. But as I say, do give us a shout if you need anything at all. Please do stay on mute and things like that throughout. This will be being recorded. It's already being recorded. You probably got a notification. So we hope that that's all right. And we're going to be sending around an email with a link to the recording afterwards. If you have any problems or you need to dip out, that'll be available for everyone at the end. So I'm going to hand over to Katie now. Thanks everybody for bearing with me. And yeah, Katie, take it away. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alex. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. As I say, as a team, we are so excited about this webinar. It's our first one for our community, so really keen to help you all as much as possible and run some really good sessions for you. So any feedback you have on this session, any ideas you have about future sessions you would like to see, we're really keen to hear those. So Alex already told you about questions and things. I'm going to talk for around 30 minutes. I can talk for ages on this topic, so I'm going to try and keep an eye on the time and stick to it. So yeah, I'm going to talk for around 30 minutes, and then, as Alex said, there'll be time for questions if you have any. And yeah, don't feel you need to wait to the end of the session to pop those in the chat if you think of things as we're going along. We will definitely be finished by 12, if not slightly before, because we know your time is valuable and I'm sure you have other things to be moving on to. This session today, I'm going to cover a few key areas that I think are really important when you're looking to start searching for a new role. They're by no means an exhaustive list. There are other things you can be doing, and these are no means things that you absolutely have to do. Well, maybe a CV is one you would have to do, but again, it's not saying you would need to do all of these in helping find a job, but hopefully there's going to be some really useful information and tips that you can take away from this. So just a bit of an intro to me. I'm Katie Orman. I've been with Inclusive Jobs for a few months now. My background is in HR, so I've got quite a number of years of experience working in both the public and private sector. Obviously quite a bit of experience in recruitment myself. And in preparation for this session, I did spend quite a bit of time talking to some of my networks, former colleagues who work in recruitment currently, just to get a bit more in-depth understanding of where things are at the moment, what they're looking for when they're looking at potential candidates to really help inform this session. I have moved from more generalist HR into specializing in employee diversity and inclusion and mental health and well-being. That's really sort of the areas I'm passionate about. So it was really exciting for me to come and work for Inclusive Jobs, because this is really the kind of thing that I really want to work on and to help people with. So here I'm a head of people, culture and inclusion. So as well as managing our internal HR function in the business, I collaborate very closely with our Chief Happiness Officer, who you can see on the slide, Poppy, our office dog. So we work very, very hard together in making sure we have a great inclusive culture for everyone to really thrive at Inclusive Jobs. I also work with companies that are looking to make their workplace more neuro-inclusive. So really workplaces where you can all thrive and work in environments which really do support you to achieve the best you can at work. So I spend a lot of time working with them, and it's always really great to see companies out there that are really committed and passionate about this as well. So that's a part of the job I'm really enjoying. And I also work with our lovely community of neurodivergent individuals like yourselves. So I help with coaching, training, different lots of support. And at the end of this session, we'll talk a bit more about what we can help you with. But that's me in a nutshell. So let's move on to actually how we can help kickstart your job search. So we've all been there. I've been there myself. I think it's something everyone can relate to, that searching for a new job, whether it's through choice, whether it's through redundancy. There's so many different reasons you might be looking for a new role. You might just be looking to move on in your career. So many different reasons that people could be at this point. And this first bit I'm going to talk about is something that's often really overlooked by people, but I think it's actually really key and can really help you along your whole process of the job search. It's that stage of really doing a bit of planning and really thinking about what it is that you want to do and where you want to be and the type of environment that you think would work well for you. And I know this can feel quite daunting and overwhelming. And I would recommend, yeah, just setting some time aside, maybe getting some support from friends, family, colleagues to help you with this, because if you're just stuck in your own head, sometimes you can't really see where you might want to be. So I know some of you will probably have a really clear idea about what you want to do next, and that's great. But some of you may just be in a role currently that you aren't really enjoying, but don't really know what it is that you would enjoy. Some of you might just have come out of studying and not really be sure what you want to do next in the world of work. Everybody will be in really different positions. So I think it is really worth spending a bit of time just thinking about what it is you want to do. So as part of that, I would spend some time thinking about the type of role you want to do, whether that's in terms of a job title. You might have a really clear idea about a set job title you want to do, whether that's some kind of developer, a marketing specialist. It could be anything. It might be a medical professional. It could be anything, or you might have an idea of a type of an area of an organization you want to work in. So it might be that you want to work in IT. It might be that you want to work in finance. So it's worth spending a bit of time thinking about that. It's also worth spending a bit of time thinking about what type of industry sector you would like to work in. So whether that's retail, finance, technology, because I know for some people that can be quite key, because for some people, they wouldn't necessarily want to work for some types of organization. So thinking particularly things along environmental lines. So I know people that wouldn't want to work for energy providers or gas or oil companies. So you may have that. You may be very open to working anywhere, but it is worth just giving a bit of thought to that, just so that you can really tailor and focus your areas of where you are searching for a role, which will save yourself time in the long run. And also worth spending a bit of time thinking about whether you would want to work in the public or the private sector, because again, they can have quite a few differences in terms of how they're structured, how they work, what scope there is for being a bit more creative, having a bit more freedom. Some public sector organizations are quite a lot more structured and a lot more rigid. So it's worth giving a bit of thought to that as well. And I feel like I am rushing through this a little bit because there is so much here. So this is kind of a really broad overview, and we could probably go into separate webinars and in detail on each of the areas I'm going to cover today. Also, I'd give some thought as to what kind of environment works best for you. And a lot of you will probably know what that is. So whether that is, as I've got on the slide, something like a remote environment, so working from home, where you can very much tailor exactly the environment that's around you. Whether it's a hybrid situation where you go on site into an office or something like that, a couple of days a week, or whether you want to be fully located on site. Now, depending on the type of role you want to do, you might not have as much choice over that, because some roles, because of the nature of them, are purely based on site. That's the only place you can do it. But for some other roles, you might have some choice in that. I'd also give some thought as to whether you're willing to move, whether you're willing to relocate to do a job that you really want to do. But I'd also spend a bit of time thinking about what works best for you. Do you work really well in a quiet environment with no distractions? So are you therefore looking to work from home or to work in an office which is happy to accommodate you wearing a headset? Because that will have a big impact on your working life and how much you are enjoying that role. Or do you want somewhere that's got a bit more stimulation around you, where you've got some things going on, where there are people around, there's different things happening, there's different noises and things? Would that actually mean that you are more productive? And would you actually hate to be stuck in your house all week working from there? So it is definitely worth giving a bit of thought to that. And then obviously salary expectations, which I'm sure most of you will think about anyway. But again, obviously most of you will have a salary amount that you need to live on. Many of you will probably be looking to increase your salaries if you are particularly moving up in your kind of career journey. But I would definitely think about, what can you afford to live on? What would you like to be having? What do you think is a good amount for the type of role you're doing? And there are various websites and things out there that are quite good for benchmarking salaries. So if you really have no idea, websites like Glassdoor can provide some good guidelines in terms of what generally, from the jobs they have on their sites, what generally would be an expected salary for the type of role you're looking into. So I definitely try and use some tools like that to have an idea of when you're applying for jobs. And also spend a little bit of time thinking about what other benefits you would like to receive. So whether that's things like how much of a percentage in terms of pension contributions, what companies can provide in terms of private healthcare, mental health and well-being supports, all of that kind of side. Because again, that is quite important. And a good thing to just have an idea of, and again, something for you to be asking companies about when you're actually approaching them. And then finally, what are your non-negotiables? I think this is very personal to each individual, and it really links to your values, I think, and what you want to do as a person. So, and that might be, you would only work from home. It might be that you would only consider working within a certain commuter distance of your home. It might be that you want to be close enough to get back at lunch times to take your dog for a walk. You might want a pet-friendly office environment. You might want somewhere that is happy with you going to do the school run every day, and that is not an issue. So whatever, if that is non-negotiable for you, I would really note that down and stick to that value, because that is really going to impact your working life in the next job role. So just it is worth, I think, spending a bit of time thinking about what those non-negotiables are for you. And then, of course, I think the thing everybody thinks about when they think about job searching is a CV. And I would say that this, probably of all the things I'm going to talk about, is the thing that pretty much is crucial. Everyone is pretty much going to need one of these. And that stat I've got on the slide is quite scary, because the amount of time you probably are going to spend on your CV, a recruiter will only look at it initially for about 6 to 7 seconds, which is not a lot of time. So you really need to have a really clear, a really concise, and a really relevant CV, because a recruiter needs to look at that in a pile of CVs and pick out exactly why they want to spend any more time looking at your CV and your application. Many CVs will also go through an applicant tracking system, which, for those of you that aren't aware of them, are essentially a bit like a database for recruiters, which will pull out often keywords. Depending on a job advert role, it'll pick out key qualifications and things relevant to that role. It will often rank CVs to help recruiters when they start to look through them. I wouldn't be too scared about applicant tracking systems, but again, if you've got a relevant, clear, and concise CV, that will mean that an applicant tracking system will process it easily and quickly, because sometimes some of the really nice CVs I have seen in the past, which have pictures and they're laid out in a really different way, so they are quite eye-catching for a human to look at. A computer will not find that in any way helpful, and will often not necessarily pull out all the relevant information it needs to. So I've seen them miss whole chunks of employment history, miss whole qualifications out simply because they can't read them. So obviously some jobs you may be looking for, particularly more creative roles. Those CVs absolutely relevant if humans are going to look at them. You might find that you're doing a lot more things like video CVs for those kind of more creative roles. And that's great. But if you're looking at more of a standard CV, particularly if you're looking to send this out to a lot of companies, a lot of recruiters, then one that's a 2-page kind of PDF Word document that's clearly laid out in that much more standard format is much more easy to go through a computer, but also you can make it quite easy for a recruiter to be able to utilize those 6 to 7 seconds to really see the value in you. So you can find lots of CV templates on just with a simple Google search, and I would pick whatever works best for you, but bearing in mind that relevant, clear, concise kind of guideline. Making sure it's not too cluttered with words. I've seen CVs which are just massive chunks of text, and it's really hard for somebody to look at those really quickly and pick out key achievements, key skills. So they need to be able to look at that and see things. It's better to have a couple of bullet points against each job in your career history, to really highlight what's relevant for that role you're applying for, than it is to have 10 bullet points detailing all of the things you did in that role, because you can go into further detail if you've got the opportunity to have a personal statement or a covering letter, or if they're then looking to have an initial call with you. That's where you can really expand on those. This is really to get you in the door. So in terms of the key things to have on your CV, you may have space for a brief introduction, in terms, and I would keep that brief, of who you are, what you're looking for, and why. And I would really probably keep to a sentence on each of those and make it specific and relevant to that particular job you're applying for. But really, I think what is more key is having your career history on there, with a couple of bullet points, particularly on the most recent jobs you've had. And when I talk to recruiters, they're really probably only looking at your last 2 or 3 roles. So depending on how long you've been in roles, if you've had quite a lot of roles over quite a short space of time, they might go back further. But really, if you've been in roles for 2, 3 years, they're really only looking at the last 2, 3 roles you've probably had. They're looking for, what are your key achievements? What did you do? What were the key skills you used? If you don't have too much in the way of career experience, I would potentially utilize any volunteering you have done, and lay that out in the same way as you would a career history. Education and qualifications, obviously include those. Again, you don't need loads of detail, just what the qualification was you achieved. And again, that unless you're coming out of study into the world of work for the first time, in which case, yes, spend a bit more time on talking about what you accomplished, the key areas you studied, what you did for dissertations, that kind of thing, that becomes a lot more relevant. But if education was a while ago and isn't particularly related to this role, then really it's a bit of a tick box for a recruiter or an applicant tracking system. Interests, again, if you have some space and you've got some interests that again are relevant to the role, that's really, really helpful. Wouldn't spend too much time on that section. Obviously contact details, which I know I haven't put on here, but any CV template will tell you to put kind of name, contact information so that people can get hold of you. One which is a big bugbear for me, spelling, punctuation, grammar, which unfortunately is something that recruiters will still dismiss a CV if there are spelling mistakes on it. And I know that is not helpful because you're potentially dismissing the best person for the role purely based on a couple of errors in spelling, punctuation, grammar. But with the world we live in at the moment, that is something that recruiters are still doing. So I would really encourage you to ask some other people to proofread your CV, because they will pick up on things you haven't noticed. Tools like Grammarly are great, and you can get Grammarly for free. Things like that are really good at helping you with this part, but I wouldn't ignore it because to have your CV dismissed for that is super annoying, and we are working with employers to change that, but at the moment that's the situation we are in, so I wouldn't neglect that section. But yeah, mainly keep it relevant, clear, and concise, and just consider when you look at it, could I pick out the key things in 6 to 7 seconds if that's all I had to look at this piece of paper? So following on from that, cover letters and personal statements. Often when you apply for a role, they will ask you to submit either a cover letter or a personal statement. They're essentially the same thing, it's just that they're laid out in different ways. A cover letter will often expect you to format that in a standard letter format. Again, a Google search will find you plenty of templates for that. A personal statement is often just more of a chunk of text, which I would spend a bit of time closely checking the instructions they've provided on what they want from the cover letter and personal statement, because you will often find they've asked for specific things there. They'll also ask for a word count, so no more than, say, 500 words, no more than 2 pages, something like that. Definitely stick to that. They definitely won't read any more than they've said they will. But also really focus on the areas they've asked you to focus on, because that is what they are looking for. It's really a chance for you to expand on what you've put in brief on your CV and how that is relevant for the roles. So they are going to particularly be looking for you to utilize examples here. So something like the STAR method is particularly good for that. STAR stands for situation, task, action, result. And it's really asking you then to say, you know, if you said that you're really great at problem solving and that's something they're looking for, it's really asking you then to go into detail on, okay, where have you used that before? What was the situation where you had the problem to solve? What did you do to solve that problem, and what was the result of that? Just to give you a bit of a guideline for how to structure those examples. I would definitely spend a bit of time looking at the language they have used in the job description and any kind of person specification they've provided, and mirroring that language. Because again, particularly if it's going through an applicant tracking system, they will be looking for those keywords. So even if it's not necessarily the word you would have used, it's worth mirroring that, because that's what they will be looking for when they're trying to quickly go through things and pick up on, have you got experience of these certain things that we're looking for in this role? And again, as with the CV, proofreading for spelling, punctuation, grammar is going to be key for cover letters and personal statements. Unfortunately, yes, like a CV, people will rule it out if there are typos and things. So again, I would encourage you to use things like Grammarly, ask other people to have a read through it to check for those kind of errors that might get you dismissed at an early stage when actually you could be the best person for that role. So really, CV, covering letter, personal statements, these are all about selling yourself. And I know that doesn't come naturally to many people. So I would really recommend talking to friends, family, colleagues, because they will often be able to sell you better than you can sell yourself. So it's worth listening to them, hearing the good things and the positive things they are saying about you, and then trying to structure that into your own words. And also things like the communities we have here, where we've got a whole group of other neurodivergent individuals who will all have been here in the past themselves, they can all help you as well. Because we have all been in this situation. We know it's tough, and we know it's hard to write these kind of things. So please do reach out for support from people, because that will really help you through these. And also people will pick up on skills and key achievements that you might not even have thought of, because often they will see things that you don't. So yes, please do reach out to people for help with these. So LinkedIn. Do you have a LinkedIn profile? I am hoping that most of you will say yes to that question. If you do have a LinkedIn profile, is it up to date and are you using it? Because there are so many out of date LinkedIn profiles. And if you are searching for a job, many application systems will ask you for your LinkedIn profile link. It needs to match up with your CV and what you're putting on in your personal kind of statement, your cover letter, because recruiters will look at your LinkedIn. So please do make sure it matches. That is a key thing that from a HR side we look at. So if you know you've got all these great things listed on your CV and your LinkedIn profile is very different, that is something that people will pick up on. But essentially, LinkedIn is an online version of your CV. So if you have spent some time working on your CV, it should be fairly straightforward to copy and paste information out of there into your LinkedIn to get that up to date. I would always add a profile photo, just because those profiles that have pictures are seen as definite people, because again, LinkedIn is not immune to having various bots and kind of spam sort of profiles set up on there. So I would definitely add a profile photo that is, if you don't have a professional headshot, that is at least one you can just take a selfie really, but as long as it is maybe not a holiday photo, but one that is at least semi-professional. LinkedIn is really good now. If people aren't really utilizing it at the moment, LinkedIn is really good for well, jobs. There is a job board as part of LinkedIn, so you can look on there for roles. You can show that you're open to work, and you've probably seen the little green band on some people's profiles if you are on there. You can choose whether that is visible to everybody or whether it's only visible to recruiters. So from the recruiter side, we would have recruiter kind of accounts, which would give us visibility of everyone within certain categories that we would input that's open to work. So you can actually then be headhunted through LinkedIn, which is great. But it really just gives you another avenue to use and get your skills and your work experience out there and hopefully in front of the right people. You can also ask for recommendations on LinkedIn. So these are like mini references, really, which are then displayed on your LinkedIn profile for any of your connections or recruiters to be able to view. You have to ask for recommendations from people. There's a little section on there with a little box you can tick, and you can ask your connections for recommendations. I know that is not the most comfortable thing to do, and there is no requirement for them to actually provide you with a recommendation, but it is well worth doing just to have some other people validate some of the achievements and things you've put down on there. I would probably start by maybe asking some close colleagues rather than going out to people you don't know so well. But yes, I appreciate that is not the most comfortable thing to do, to actually have to ask for those. You can obviously return the favor and write recommendations for other people. If somebody writes your recommendation, you don't actually have to display it on your profile. So if you don't like what they've written, there's no obligation for you to actually set that to public. So people don't have to see it, but it is quite a good thing. Again, recruiters will, particularly your last couple of recommendations, they will have a quick scan of those. So it is nice to have those on there if you want to utilize that function. If you're not utilizing LinkedIn really currently, once you've set up your profile, I would definitely spend a bit of time connecting to people you know, that you study with, work with currently, and start to reach out maybe to some people that are posting some interesting content that's relevant to you, people working in the sector you want to work in, to start to advance your network. You'll start to see lots of relevant things come through on your feed, and potentially jobs, because jobs that you might not see in other places, people will kind of often link that their colleague is advertising for something. So it just gives you another avenue to utilize. I would also consider LinkedIn Premium. I'm not saying pay for this every month because it is expensive, but you can get a 1 month free if you haven't utilized it in the last year. I would choose carefully when you want to use that so that you can make the most out of that month. But that gives you access to a lot of additional features which you can really make work for you in your job search. And I'm not employed by LinkedIn, but just it is a useful feature in your job search, and I would definitely utilize that free 1 month. So LinkedIn, I think is quite a big one at the moment, and ones that recruiters are definitely looking at. Networking, I thought about whether or not to include this because the word networking fills most people with dread. So you are not alone. And networking, I don't think is crucial, but can also lead to some really good results. So I don't know how many people resonate with this. Sorry, I'm late. I didn't want to come, which I found online and thought was really, really appropriate to include because I think this resonates with a lot of people. So networking, Happens mainly in two settings, either online or in person at those horrendous events where you're all shoved into a room. There's probably some alcohol and you're all expected just to go and approach people you don't know and start conversations with small talk that are really uncomfortable and try and sell yourself, which, yes, that's pretty horrible. Um, Online is slightly better, purely because you are not shoved into a room with some alcohol and expected to talk to people in person. They are all doing that on an online space instead. But often online, it may be a setup more like this, where there's a webinar or some kind of presentation, and then you might go into breakout groups, something like that. However, there is probably also still an expectation of having cameras on and that kind of side. So again, it can still be quite uncomfortable and there's still a load of people you don't necessarily know. There can be definite advantages. So you can meet some really good people who can help you. They can be working for a company you want to work for, in the sector you want to work in, and they can help connect you with others. Definitely there are some really good benefits to it. However, do the pros outweigh the cons? For some people, yes. However, if this is going to cause you lots of stress, lots of anxiety, is it worth it? No. Is it essential to getting a new job? No. So if this is something you want to do that you feel comfortable with, whether that's online or in person, there are lots of networking groups, communities. LinkedIn again is a good place to start for looking for these kind of things. You can utilize colleagues, friends, any other groups you belong to start to get the word out that you're looking for different roles, looking to meet different people. But I would not say this is essential. If you're interested in doing it, definitely give it a go. If it fills you with horror, you don't need to do this to get a job. But just throwing networking out there as something to consider. But please, yeah, if it fills you with great stress and anxiety, don't worry about it. Recruitment agencies. So along with job boards, which I'm going to talk about next, the two probably key areas that you will look for roles are recruitment agencies and job boards. So recruitment agencies can be great. They can also be terrible. So I think you really want to spend a bit of time finding recruiters that really are interested in you and are interested in finding the right role for you and not just interested in earning their commission and getting you into any job. That can be quite hard, quite challenging. It's definitely good to try and get some recommendations from people that have used recruiters before, particularly if it's in the type of area you want to go into. Because a bad recruiter who isn't really interested in you, who just wants to get you into any role, can waste a lot of your time. And your time is really valuable. I know that job searching can become a full-time job in itself. So particularly if you're working full-time currently and you're trying to search for a job on top of that, that is a lot of time you're going to be spending. It's a lot of extra hours, a lot of extra stress. So don't waste your time on bad recruiters. Find ones that really understand you, understand what you want. If a recruiter is just sending you through any old job that's nothing to do with what you've told them you want to do, that's a bad recruiter. So don't waste your time on them. Great recruiters though, they can really listen to you. They can really find you the jobs they want. They will also probably be honest with you if they don't think they have anything that's right for you right now. They can also help with CVs, interview preparation. I've seen recruiters before who really just go above and beyond with that and making you really comfortable with knowing exactly where you're going for interviews, providing you with all sorts of information about exactly what to expect. So find those recruiters because they are great. But yeah, recruitment agencies, they can eat loads of your time. So definitely set some boundaries, prioritize, focus on the ones that are finding you the right type of roles, not the ones that are just blanket sending you everything. And then job boards, you obviously have a bit more control of these. This slide just shows a variety of job boards you probably hold of. They're all kind of quite standard, generic boards. So these will show jobs in all sorts of different sectors, all sorts of different pay grades. There's really just everything on here. Quite an interesting place to start if you don't really know what you want to do. Just to spend some time looking around them, seeing what kind of jobs are out there, what kind of salaries they are. So just good places to kind of browse, really, if you just want to find out a bit more about different things you might be interested in. In addition to these generic job boards, you obviously get a lot of job boards that are industry specific, much more role specific. So if you know what you want to do, there will be a job board out there for you. So I know from a HR side, there are plenty of HR specific job boards out there that would probably be the ones I would be signing up to. But that wouldn't probably stop me signing up to LinkedIn, Indeed, because they also advertise some really interesting things, and companies advertise in different places. A lot of these will allow you to upload your CV and set them so that recruiters can view them. So it's another good place to get your CVs in front of recruiters without you necessarily having to do any additional work. So it is quite useful for that. Again, might lead you to those bad recruiters who are just desperately trying to fill roles with anybody that they think they might be able to get in the door. But equally, you might find a good recruiter out there. You might find a job that you never would have seen otherwise. Again, please, obviously, yeah, if you are getting inundated, some of these will email you just so much stuff if you sign up to job alerts and things. So please don't get overwhelmed with the volume of emails you can get. Please be quite strict in how you're setting those LinkedIn, Indeed alerts up in terms of receiving jobs, because yeah, it can be great. It can be really overwhelming. But yeah, job boards give you obviously a lot more control over, you can find roles on there, you can link through and apply to roles yourselves. So good place to, I'm just checking time because I'm realizing that I'm running slightly over. I'm sure Alex is about to kick me soon. But I am almost at the end. So yeah, recruitment agencies, job boards, make them work for you. And it will take a bit of time, but it is worth investing that time to really find the ones that are going to help you find the role you want. And how Inclusive Jobs can help. So if you did want any support from us, we do have a growing community of neurodivergent individuals who we offer support to. So these are a few of the things on the screen that we help out with. So we run monthly virtual events like this on all sorts of different topics, and we're obviously keen to hear your feedback on what else you would like to have from us. We provide curated lists of inclusive jobs from companies that we're working with. We have lots of recommendations for different gadgets and tools that might help you in different areas of work environment. We also provide quite a bit of signposting to mental health resources. There's lots of articles you can just about see, I think, on the screen. We have lots of articles about all sorts of different things to help support you, to give you tips and information, different stories from members of our team, members of the community, tips on managing your conditions. So there's a whole wealth of information on this community. And where you see this QR code appearing again on slides, if you scan that will take you to the community, so you can sign up for free on there. There is also a paid option, which again you can have a look at, but yeah, you can get a free account and have a bit of a browse and see if you find some value in that, and you can access all of these bits here. We also support with one-to-one sessions, so things like career coaching, interview preparation, CV checking, all sorts of different things. That's just 3 of the things we offer. We do have a whole load more, which again, you'll be able to see on the community. So lots of different things we can help and support with. And just finally, because I feel I'm rushing through this quite quickly now, but yeah, please do have a look online on our site to see what else we have. Just please look after yourself. I know this is really tough. It's not easy. It can be time consuming. It can just roll on for months searching for a job. And as I say, we have all been there. We all know how hard this is. So please do set some boundaries, look after yourself. Don't forget those basics of just getting some regular sleep, eating, staying hydrated, getting out into nature and getting some movement into your day, because that's really important. And you are going to be so much better writing your CV, talking to recruiters if you're looking after yourself as well. And obviously reach out for support. We know how hard it is. So yeah, we're here, members of our community are here. Please do utilize us, because yeah, it is tough searching for a job, and we all can relate to that. So thank you everyone for listening. I know that I'm about like 9 minutes left for questions, and I haven't looked at the chat at all, so I'm not sure how many questions have come through. But yeah, thank you everyone. Sorry, Alex. I just got a
Not
little
at
bit
all.
carried
No, I
away.
think that's it's one of those topics where, like, especially someone like yourself with that experience, you can
I
talk
could
for a long
talk for
time,
hours on each slide.
in a
I
good
know.
way, in a good way.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know listening to that, it resonated even for me. The way I keep my LinkedIn up to date, the fact that I've got paragraphs of text, I'm thinking, I should cut some of those down.
Well,
I'm
and
one of
I
those essay
think
people.
everybody is like, I know recently I went through my LinkedIn and I hadn't even updated that I was working here. So I'm as bad. I'm not saying that any of us are perfect at this, because it is a lot of things to
It
keep up
is.
to
It's
date and
it's a
keep
lot to do.
juggling.
It's a lot to do.
So yeah,
Well, as you say, we've got a few minutes left. We've had a few
yeah,
questions through. I think we'll probably only have time for one or two. I will say that, as I said before, this webinar has been recorded. What we're going to do is we're going to send out the recording to everybody on a follow-up email. And what we'll try and do is include some of those questions at the end. So anything we didn't get a chance to answer, we'll gather the appropriate members of the team and get some expert advice for you on those. We did have a couple I think would be really good just to work through now in these last few minutes. And I think it's something that is discussed a lot. I know in the community. So the first one is from a recruiter space. Should I disclose my disabilities or my neurodivergent status to recruiters when I'm looking for the job? What would you say to people asking that?
oh, that's a really good question. Um, I think it's a very individual choice to do that. Um, I would say, obviously, there's no obligation for you to disclose. If you're working with a good recruiter who you trust, then yes, I would consider disclosing that, because they can probably help you, find the right companies, because they won't necessarily go out to companies and tell them that you've disclosed this. But when they're talking to companies, they'll be able to consider, is this the kind of culture or environment that would suit you? So it can help them find a role that will actually suit you. However, on the flip side of that, I would say if you are working with a bad recruiter who doesn't really care, I would probably, I hate to say it, but probably not disclose, because potentially they will dismiss you then for roles. As I said, though, it is a very personal individual choice to do that, and there is absolutely no obligation to do so. So if you feel
Mm,
comfortable and you trust your recruiter, then yes. But otherwise, I would consider whether it's going to be helpful. But yeah,
mm.
it is a really good question.
Do you think it's more important, and this is similar to other questions, about actually telling your potential new employer, disclosing to them, considering, the
Yeah.
legal implications that are in place and things like that, as far as from an employer's perspective? Do you think it's more important to disclose to them if you have a disability or condition?
So, well, obviously coming from a HR background, I would say it's great for HR if you disclose, because we can then make sure we've got the support in place to
Mm.
make sure that you are in an environment that's really going to kind of set you up for success in your role. However, I know that it can be really hard to disclose, and people are really worried about whether that might then impact their chances of getting a role, keeping the role. And I get that, and I have heard obviously all sorts of stories. So again, there is obviously no obligation to disclose it. Legally, a company can't obviously use that in any way against you. Again, it's down to individual choice, I would say, very much at this stage. If from my side, like if I'm in HR and somebody came to me and disclosed, I would be very happy, because then I can actually help and support that person. But yeah, it's an individual choice, and I think the work we're trying to do as a company to support companies to get to that place where they not only understand what people are disclosing to them, but know then how to support them. I think that's what we're trying to get to. But yeah, it is again a personal decision, but it'd be great if people could
The ideal world, isn't it? Where we
felt
all
comfortable
actually
doing so, yeah.
definitely. Okay, and I'll go just for one last question then. We've got, which I think is interesting as well, is how would you structure your time when you're trying to do job searching? Obviously, you mentioned about, trying to do it alongside a full-time job or things like that. How much time would you spend on each individual thing? Like, how would you approach that if it was overwhelming you?
Yeah, so yeah, it is a lot. I mean, I probably prioritize what you're going to do. So if you haven't looked at your CV for years, you don't have a current CV, I'd prioritize spending some time on that, because that's really your key thing. And once you've got that in place, you can copy and paste things out of there into a lot of different things like LinkedIn. It's the starting point for your cover letters, personal statements. So CV is the thing I would prioritize. And I would probably try and schedule that into your day if you can. So you just go, right, I'm going to spend an hour each evening working on my CV, and then maybe updating my LinkedIn profile, so it doesn't get too out of hand. Or I would maybe think about buddying up with someone who can so you can have a bit of accountability. They can also help boost you a bit, because it's tough. Like sometimes you just sit there looking at CV going, what even have I done? I do that. So having a buddy to support you again can be really useful. If you just book in like even a couple of calls and just go, right, can you just sit on this call and even just work alongside me to make sure I'm actually doing my CV. If you find
I
that
find body
challenging,
doubling
or
so useful.
just boost me,
It
just
does
give me
help.
some ideas about, yeah. So yeah, and I just work to really prioritize those bits. And if you are starting to get inundated with all those emails from Indeed, just really go, right, what's serving me now? What's really urgent and important here? What's going to get me a role? Because don't end up spending all night on this, because
Yeah, it can be difficult
that's
to
not good for
prioritize, can't it?
your well-being either.
Yeah, I guess it's how to prioritize, techniques of prioritizing. I mean, we had someone pop in a chat, using different methods of prioritizing tasks, like the Eisenhower matrix. I mean,
Yeah,
we
we
put something out, I
posted
think,
that,
over
didn't we?
Christmas,
Yeah.
about that. I mean, I know it's one of my favorite methods, which I was taught in one of my very first roles, was just to do that grid of like important and urgent, important, and not important. But I think everyone has their own method, don't they? So it's finding the one that
Finding
works
what
for
works for
you.
you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we do have some others, but we've only got about a minute left, so I'm gonna wrap it up here. Um, Thanks everybody who joined. It was absolutely wonderful to have you with us. Thank you for the participation. As I say, we'll roll out an email any questions that weren't answered. And obviously, thank you, Katie, for running us through that. Definitely some things that even in 12 years of working, I hadn't thought about. So I'm hoping everyone else found it just as useful as well. I'm really looking forward to obviously bringing more of the team in, doing some more of these webinars with everybody, and reaching out to more people in the community. So if anyone has any suggestions, if anyone has anything they'd like to see next, please do shout out. Make sure you join up onto the free community using that QR code. Join up on our socials. We're even attempting TikTok now. So hey, it's going to be great. I'm excited, and it's such a brilliant community to be part of. I know how important it is you know, from a lived experience level to realize that there are people out there who understand how hard it is and how you feel going through this. So so yeah, just thank you so much everyone for joining in, and we'll see you all soon.